All right, good evening and welcome to the fall PTA Town Hall hosted by the PTA Caucus. PTA Caucus is made up of representatives, PTA Caucus representatives from each chapter or state. Those representatives they are elected or appointed by their board of directors. We also have several alternate representatives. The folks you see on the screen tonight, we have our 4 delegates as well as our alternate delegate. They'll introduce themselves in just a moment, and we will get to our special guest here shortly as well. But I am David Harris. I am from the great state of Tennessee, and I am the chief delegate this year. So Chris Reeves, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we can proceed.
All right, thanks, David. Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Reeves, and I am one of the PTA Caucus delegates. I am from Wisconsin. So tonight we are going to go through several different things. What we're going to start with, though, is the rest of the delegates are going to introduce themselves so that everyone can put a face to our names. And then after that, we're going to talk a little bit about what the caucus has been up to since the House of Delegates. And then we're going to talk with our guests tonight and then go through some Q&A at the end. So first, next, I'd like Sean Bagby to go ahead and introduce himself.
Hey, everybody. I'm Sean Bagby. I'm a PTA Caucus delegate from Indiana.
Hi, everybody. I am Jody Pfeiffer from the great state of Alaska. I am one of your PTA Caucus delegates, and I am the delegate liaison to the fantastic Western region.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brenda Dorman, and I'm from the Sunshine State of Florida, and I serve as a delegate liaison for the Mid-Atlantic PTA Caucus Reps.
Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Thibodeau, and I'm from Connecticut. I'm not sure what I can jazz up Connecticut with, but I'm the alternate delegate, and I am the liaison for the Northeast region.
All right, thanks, everyone. So a few ground rules before we begin. Everyone, if you can please post any questions you have in our chat feature. The attendees tonight are attending through listening mode only, but you do have access to the chat. So if you're familiar with Zoom, or if you're not familiar with Zoom, if you kind of scroll down to the bottom of your viewing screen, different things will pop up, and one of them will say chat, and then you can type in your questions from there. Megan, Sean, and Lisa will be gathering that information for us, and we'll be going through those questions during our Q&A session after our conversation with Carmen. If it can be answered by a chat, then Megan will be answering it that way as well. All right, so to update everyone, the PTA Caucus, after the 2020 House of Delegates, decided to set a wildly important goal, something that we could all work on together until the next House in 2021. We knew that we wanted our goal to help demonstrate the value of the PTA and show just how active PTAs are across the country in advocating for our profession and the profession as a whole. The caucus decided to focus our goal on generating involvement opportunities for PTAs at the chapter, section, and national levels by achieving at least 500 engagements by the 2021 House Delegates. We have been working on this goal just since the end of July, and to date, caucus reps from across the country have already participated in 470 different opportunities. We massively underestimated our ability to engage people from across the profession. So we will be working on establishing a new goal pretty soon, or to increase our own engagements. And so it was wonderful to see how all PTAs from across the country came together and really showed just how much we do in advocacy for physical therapy. To highlight a few of our representatives from around the country in the different regions, from the Midwest region, Ian Thompson is the representative from Nebraska. And he recently attended a pre-PT meeting at the University of Nebraska where he talked. He was participating with a local physical therapist. And he and the PT talked to that group about what it means to be a part of the physical therapy profession and the different roles that we all play, demonstrating that collaborative nature of the PT-PTA team. Casey Klein is the alternate representative from Arizona, and Casey identified a need for research regarding PTAs and COVID-19. She stepped up and compiled the information and shared it at her state level and with all of us via Facebook Live, which you can still access, and I strongly suggest you do. Cody Phillips from Georgia, he is a new representative who has been able to create a focused interest group known as FIN, F-I-N, that meets monthly. He utilizes a Zoom format, connecting with PTAs from across the state. Interesting twist is that he encourages all those who attend to virtually share their choice of adult beverage. He also encourages the PTAs on the call to be active and engaged in the environments they come from, whether it be practice, education, or school. Tracy Hardes is the representative from New York. She has been excellent with coordinating efforts for PTA outreach and advocacy in her state, along with a motivating factor for the rest of our region. She is a positive leader who continues to be present and engaged. And last but not least, we have Kat Harget from Missouri, has done an amazing job of getting out, making contact with programs in her chapter. She has also written a letter that is being published in her local paper and is doing a segment about it as well about PT on a commercial that will be airing for PT Month. So as you can see, we have lots of different PTAs from around the country doing lots of different events and engagements. So now I'm going to turn it over to David.
All right, thank you, Krista. And wow, it's unbelievable the number of engagements. So yeah, we're going to have to really up the stage here. So I'm going to go ahead and ask our special guest, Carmen Cooper-Oguz, to come on, turn her camera and and unmute herself. And Carmen, first and foremost, thank you so much. You've always been a true supporter of the PTA and the PTA Caucus from the moment I met you, and we are blessed to have you as our board liaison. And I think this is a first for us in a while, and this is something that we've really looked forward to, and that's getting some information from the board, from the APTA, from a perspective outside of our own. So Carmen, if you don't mind, for those that may not be so familiar with you, if you'll take just a few moments and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into a few questions here and move forward.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much, David, and to the rest of you on the panel tonight, and to all of you attendees who are joining us tonight. My name is Carmen Cooper-Oguz. I'm from Mississippi, which is the the Magnolia State, and I am the first board member from Mississippi, so it is my pleasure to represent this state and this area of the world. Some of you may not realize that when people are elected to the board of directors, they are assigned liaison roles. And thankfully, President Sharon Dunn was kind enough to ask the new board members who were elected in 2019 if they had some preferences on which group or component or caucus with which they would like to liaise. And, you know, David's right. I am a physical therapist assistant fan. I requested to be the liaison from the board to the PTA caucus. And I'm grateful to President Sharon Dunn for assigning me. This is a fantastic group. Your leadership in and around the caucus, particularly the people you see on the screen, are fantastic professionals. And again, it is my pleasure to be here with you tonight. And with that, David, I'm happy to accept your questions.
All right, thank you so much. We will, you know, try to keep this down to 10 or 20 questions or something like that, or maybe 3. How's that?
Right.
So we'll take our time here. So we have a little time here. So the first question that kind of came up was, you know, can you give us a rundown of some of the items that the board, the APTA, the board of directors is working on in regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion, given that that's been such a hot topic the last several years within the association, but especially, you know, this year, it seems to be rising to the top even more. So can you tell us a little bit about what the board's doing with that?
Oh, I absolutely will. I'm happy to. And in anticipation of this question, I do have quite a few notes. So if you'll indulge me, I may need to refer to them. So, you know, strategic priority of the APTA is, of course, to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion so that our profession and our association more closely resembles the society that we serve. And I think most everyone will agree that right now we don't resemble the society that we serve. So, you know, this is not a new priority for APTA, but it has generated increased awareness and activity given some recent events in our country. And this summer, in response to the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and others, and the conversations it has started about systemic racism in this country, and just how far we still have to go. So APTA has not shied away from the dialogue. At the end of May, President Sharon Dunn did issue a statement on racism and about systemic inequality in America. And the full statement is available on APTA's website. So also on June 19th, which happens to be Juneteenth, the APTA issued an all-member message to honor the occasion, you know, along with links related to readings, including articles written by APTA members about the minority experiences in our physical therapy community. You know, sharing member voices is something that we've been doing increasingly. And if you go to the new diversity, equity, and inclusion page on APTA's new website, you can find perspectives written by our members on numerous related topics. But if you have not seen this, the APTA collaborated to provide the inaugural Linda D. Woodruff Lecture, which was delivered by former board member Greg Hicks. Greg Hicks was appointed to serve last year as a board member due to the death of one of our esteemed board member colleagues from Florida. So if you haven't watched this lecture, it's available at APTA's website, and I strongly encourage you to watch it because Greg's delivery and the content, it was just fantastic. You know, it includes information about recommendations that APTA plans to bring to CAPTE, which is the Physical Therapy and Physical Therapist Assistant Educational Accreditation component. And it also provides several ideas for immediate actionable steps that we can all take to improve diversity in our profession. But, you know, APTA is also establishing a DE&I committee to support our continued focus and action on these issues. So we have gotten a great response to people who wanted to throw their hat into the ring to be on this committee. The response has been tremendous, and the momentum is just growing by leaps and bounds. So you should also know that APTA has also established the Campaign for Future Generations, which is designed to leverage our centennial to further invest in DE&I efforts. Here are a few elements to the campaign. The funds raised for naming rights in our new headquarters will support the campaign. Any net proceeds from centennial year events and activities will support the campaign. And you can also make individual donations right now. In fact, the first 10,000 people to donate a minimum of $10 will have their name included in the new headquarters on the community wall. And if that's not an opportunity in and of itself to go down in history as number one, donating to the profession that is near and dear to our heart, but also simultaneously supporting the efforts of DE&I can't think of a better occasion. So, you know, these are only a few of the challenges that our profession and our association are facing. And, you know, what's true in all of these areas that we're facing them together, we are in fact better together. And that's always been a value of our association, the connections, the collaborations, and our community. So, you know, I want to stay along this topic, but shift gears. You do know that we rolled out the new website earlier this year, and the branding initiatives have just fallen right in line. So along the lines of equity and inclusion and identity, you know, not too long ago, it was hard to make the connections across the chapters and the components, but everything's fallen in line. And today, over 86% of the chapters and sections have committed to aligning to the unified brand. So, you know, not straying too much from the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion. You know, it's up to us. If not us, who's going to do it? And I can't think of a better professional community to embrace these issues and to address these head on in a better together fashion. So, you know, with that, I don't know if there are any questions about this topic in the chat box, David, but we can save them to the end if you want, because you may have a couple more or 20 or 30 questions to ask me.
Yes, thank you. And Carmen, that was a great, very detailed. Thank you so much. And yes, we will hold the questions to the end. So I'm going to do another little plug for the chat box. All those in attendance, please feel free to ask questions in the chat box. We have a segment of time towards the end to basically go through those questions. So please do that as you can. I got a couple more questions here, and then we may have time to add some more, but we may not, because these are two questions that are going to be a little bit more robust and take a little bit more time, I think. And so really one of the biggest questions that would be on everybody's mind, and if you've plugged into social media or if you've paid attention to anything on the website or anything the APTA's put out in the last, I feel like the last 2 years, but I'll just stay with 2020, really is the pending cuts. You know, we've got a 9% threat of a cut coming in January of 2021. And then for a lot of those on the call, we have a 15% cut for PTA services with federal payers or with Medicare. So, and a couple others jumping on board. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, not only the board stance, but some of the things that the board and the APTA has been doing from your vision. What have they been doing to not only fight these, but to try to address these pretty devastating cuts that are coming?
Oh yeah, you said the word, pretty devastating if they happen. So of course, you know, the APTA and all its stakeholders, we are trying to prevent that from happening. So you know, the APTA members have been called upon to call their congressman regarding the 9% cuts. So there's also a link for constituent non-members to use to reach out to the Congress people. And, you know, although over 52,000 letters have been sent to Capitol Hill just lobbying against the proposed cuts to our physical therapy services, you know, really time is of the essence to call on Congress now to stop the cuts, because these 9% cuts are scheduled to take effect in January of 2021. roughly only 3 months away. So we need you to call your members of Congress today. And don't just stop there. We all encounter patients or students or people who aren't necessarily members, but they are stakeholders and beneficiaries of our wonderful services. So please point them in the right direction, because everything that you need to write to your congressman, to tweet, to email, it's all on the APTA website. And there is a site for non-members as well. So, you know, I also, that's the one of the 1-2 punch. The second punch is we've been asking people to reach out to CMS. So, you know, we've been making noise on Capitol Hill. So now it's time to make some noise with Medicare. So the APTA is calling on physical therapist assistants, students, anybody who cares about what we do to contact Medicare to fight the 9% cuts. So because these cuts are expected to start in January, the deadline to voice your opposition to Medicare. Now you can keep the initiatives with your Congress people ongoing, you know, pick up that phone, send them an email daily. But the deadline to voice your opposition to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services is October 5th. That's less than 1 week away. So there is a link on the APTA website, and I'm sure Lisa Mack or David Harris, if you want that information, maybe they can push that out or put it in the community. We want to make sure that we do that. So, you know, I imagine those are the 9% across the board cuts, and I imagine that the question about the 15% cuts scheduled to take effect in January of 2022, they're on your minds. They're on my mind too. They're on APTA's mind. So if you don't mind, I'd like to give you a little bit of background and remind maybe some of you newcomers about how this, the notion of the 15% cuts came you know, to be, and then what's been going on more recently to stop the cuts. So you'll excuse me, history is not my strong suit, so I may read some of this, but you know, back in February of 2018, the House of Representatives released the information on the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2018, known as the BBA. And upon its release, you know, we learned that the House had included in the legislation that the PTA and the OTA modifier and payment differential provision was going to be set in place. And this provision had not been part of any of the discussions with the members of Congress or people on Capitol Hill related to what they intended to include in the BBA. So, you know, suffice it to say, it really caught everybody off guard. It was estimated that this payment differential legislation provision would save the Medicare program about $1.2 billion over the next 10 years. So upon release of that information immediately in February of 2018, over the next 48 hours within the release, the APTA, the American Occupational Therapy Association, and other stakeholders attempted to have the provision modified, if not eliminated, with the legislation. But, you know, Congress refused to consider our alternative policy options and further explained that they would not be making any changes prior to the passage of the bill. So Congress proceeded to pass the legislation, and on Friday, February 9th, 2018, the president signed the legislation into law. So that was in 2018. February. So later on in the spring, the summer, the fall of 2018, the APTA met with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid in person and over the phone and submitted extensive comments in response to the 2019 PFS proposed rule that was released in July of 2018, by the way, that included CMS's definition of in whole or in part for services provided by physical therapist assistant in whole or in part. I just wanted to clarify. So in all of the communications with CMS, including our comments, the APTA put forward recommendations regarding how CNS should define when services are furnished in whole or in part. So we also encourage the entire physical therapy profession to submit comments, providing a customizable template letter, which you can find all of this on the Regulatory Action Center, which is on the APTA webpage. But subsequently, APTA initiated an in-person meeting with CMS Administrator Seema Verma, along with several other associations, to discuss our concerns with the proposed implementation of the 10% de minimis standard. Representatives from the APTA included your illustrious PTA Caucus Chief Delegate David Harris and the Private Practice Section President Sandy Norby. The meeting was the first time that APTA had been able to meet directly with the CMS administrator. So that is a big deal. So if you haven't thanked David and everybody who made that possible, be sure you do that. So thankfully, Administrator Verma did listen to the concerns, and, you know, because David can be quite persuasive. And she asked questions about how this new rule would affect our patients and physical therapist assistants going forward. You know, we were able to drive home some points of the increase in administrative burden with the new modifiers, as well as the significant concerns around the proposed application. So moving forward, you know, again and again and time and again, you know, comment letters have been asked to be sent. We presented these arguments with recommendations to CMS at a meeting early in 2019, and later incorporated recommendations into the formal comments for the 2020 PFS proposed rule that were submitted in September of 2019. So, you know, APTA will again begin incorporating these recommendations into our comments on this year's fee schedule rule, which will be submitted about this time, the end of September 2020. I'm waiting for an email to hit my inbox at any moment, because I am on a committee that deals with such. So it's important to note that you know, while we believe that the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has these mechanisms available to them as a means, you know, CMS may disagree that it's what they should do. But, you know, I want to congratulate you, you know, you PTA caucus reps and you members, and just the physical therapist assistants out there just grinding it out day in and day out. You know, you've played important roles in the delivery of the quality of care for our patients. And APTA, we're extremely disappointed that Congress has established a Medicare payment differential that's set to take effect. So, you know, unfortunately, this differential is not unusual. We've seen it in other professions, which that doesn't necessarily help our cause. But you need to know that the APTA continues to advocate for greater recommendation of the valuable role that you physical therapist assistants play in the care delivery system. And due to our efforts, number one, beginning January 1st, earlier this year in 2020, PTAs are now allowed to furnish maintenance therapy in the home health setting under Part A. In April 2020, CMS issued formal recognition of PTs and PTAs who hold physical therapist compact privileges as eligible to participate in Medicare. And look, many of you on the panel tonight and in the audience have worked with TRICARE, and as of April 16th, 2020, TRICARE recognizes physical therapist assistants as eligible providers. You know, during the COVID-19 pandemic, CMS is temporarily allowing physical therapist assistants to furnish telehealth services. And, you know, some of your state practice acts already said that you could do that. But what this means is physical therapist assistants can get reimbursed for furnishing these services, which is a big deal. The APTA continues to advocate that CMS allow general supervision of physical therapist assistants in private practice instead of the more strict direct supervision. Furthermore, we are engaged in ongoing efforts with CMS to improve access to physical therapy services under the skilled nursing facility patient-driven payment models and the home health grouping models. You know, it's just been a really crazy year, a lot of heavy hits. So, you know, I can answer questions. Everything just seems like it's coming crashing down in 2020, but there are some lights that we begin to see at the tunnel. But one of the biggest lights in this fight is you, the physical therapist assistant who's not stood by and taken everything lightly. I heard what Chris has said. Y'all showed up and showed out in your initiative that she talked about the numbers. And now that y'all are gonna have to go back and set new goals, it's because you showed up and showed out. And it's gonna take a village, and it's taken everybody. We're better together. And that's what PTA teams do. We work together and we pull together. So it's not over yet. The fat lady has not sung. So just hang in there. Do not give up the fight. We still need you. We need you now more than ever.
Thank you, Carmen, and thank you for the response. And you know, I'll add one point to the meeting with Seema Verma, and you know, I guess my best action was to remain silent, I think, in that one. So that probably accomplished a lot. But you know, one of the biggest things that came out of that is there was a push and rumor that if the PTA worked in part of the codes, or if they worked in total of, you know, so many minutes, that it would count, basically the entire treatment would be taken into account at the 85%. And that, a part of that meeting, we did get clarification afterwards that it was not, it was per code, and that, you know, PTAs could participate in certain segments and not in others, and it not dock the entire treatment, which I don't think a lot of people realize the impact of that. You know, that's a pretty huge impact. So thank you for the answer. And again, it's not over, and it will never be over. We've been fighting cuts and caps since I entered this profession in May of 1999, and I don't see that ever changing. But it is up to us, right? It's us. So we have to do it. We can't point fingers and say you have to do it or you have to do it. It's really up to us. So thank you for that. And I have one more question. You didn't think only 2 questions would take that long, did you? No.
Bring it on. I'm ready.
All right. So 2020, boy, it's been quite a year, right? It's been interesting. I am waiting on the giant Godzilla turkey to come out of the water and chase us all around. So it's just been a crazy year. But tell us a little bit about 2020 in APTA's eyes with COVID and all of the things that are going on. Tell us a little bit about how you feel the board has responded and APTA has responded to the COVID crisis, pandemic, and other things in 2020, but also tell us some of the areas of focus. And I think we spoke earlier about some deep dive groups that were, you know, to me, it was so enlightening just to kind of look, there's a lot of things going on that could be, you know, perceived as negative, but the work still goes on. The effort still goes on. So can you talk a little bit about our COVID response and then a little bit about these deep dive groups?
Oh, absolutely. I'm happy to. So if you didn't hear me say it before, I was elected to the board of directors in June of 2019. So when the pandemic hit in March, I had only been a board member for basically 9 months. So, you know, for my experience as a board member to compare and contrast, it seems like Zoom meetings and being able to be in 2 or 3 places at once is all I know right now. And I'm okay with that. But it did knock the wind out of my sails and a lot of people's, you know, individually, I know professionally, people were hurting from a healthcare perspective. People's health was suffering, and it seems like this pandemic has thrown everyone in a tailspin, which oddly enough has really, really strengthened our bonds and our ability to work together and to react, because you should know that within, you know, I'm going to say mid-March, within a few days to about a week, your APTA national staff was able to shift from working in this nice confined structure of a building. They had to shift to work from home because everybody had to what? SIP, shelter in space, in place, excuse me, I said space. Maybe that's where we all should be. Does COVID-19 exist there? I don't know. But anyway, in order to meet the sheltering in place, APTA National was able to respond, react. Everybody moved to working from their home, and they really, really haven't missed a beat. As a matter of fact, it's been said and proven that they were able to work harder, smarter, probably longer hours, but get the same amount of work done. So I'll give you a brief refresher. So back in February of 2020, we did start to see the first few cases of COVID. And in March, the APTA published its first of what is now over 100 articles related to COVID-19. And, you know, that came from sections, academies, chapters, APTA National, everybody pitched in. So on March the 11th, 2020, we had our first cancellation of an in-person event, which was unfortunately the federal advocacy forum. And, you know, this is a big year for advocacy. So that was kind of a bummer. And then President of Trump, of course, declared a national emergency on March 13th. And then on March the 17th, the APTA Board of Directors did issue a statement encouraging physical therapists to use their professional judgment as to when, where, if they could or couldn't render treatment. And, you know, it was a very sound and solid statement, something by which the APTA Board of Directors stands. But, you know, people were confused, people were hurting, people were taken aback. So, you know, I feel like that I know it was the right thing to say, and it continues to be the right thing to do, because after all, we are professionals. You know, we were being given guidance by the CDC and other local, state, and federal entities, and the APTA always pointed that back because there was no one size fits all. So, you know, so much has happened since then. Our ability to not just provide telehealth services, because again, in many state practice acts, we already had the authority to do it, but to get reimbursed. You know, I've been talking about telehealth before telehealth was cool. I talked about it in China last year in July, and in years before, you know, we've advocated for improvements to barriers or access to care, and telehealth was one mechanism by which we were able to accomplish that. But here's one thing that I think you already know. Throughout the pandemic, the APTA's value was unmistakable and immeasurable. The website traffic increased, and you know, we had a new website, so that was fantastic. We tripled our traditional website traffic in the early days of the pandemics, and we're still setting records high. You know, we as we always knew that we solidified our position that the APTA was a trusted leader for the profession when the world, and specifically our nation, was in crisis. So, you know, as I mentioned, one of the ways that APTA provided leadership was to survey the profession and to summarize the impact of the pandemic. We released our first report in May and then provided an update in August. You know, APTA recognized that a lot of their members, and then just licensed therapists and physical therapist assistants across the world were suffering job losses and were furloughed. But, you know, as of July, 40% of PTs and PTAs, no, excuse me, 40% of PTs and 44% of the PTAs that were experiencing declines that had improved. But, you know, the career pride does remain strong, and it's because of you. You never gave up hope. You never stopped fighting, despite all the hardships facing the profession. You know, the pandemic is more likely to have increased career pride in PTs and PTAs than decreased it. So the pandemic gave us a big old bag of rotten lemons, and we as a profession, as an organization, as leaders in our fields, we made a big old bowl of lemonade. We have. So David asked me what the board has been doing. So you know the travel has been suspended for all national events. We held our first virtual House of Delegates and next conference, and then you know that CMS will be going virtual in February, which January does kick off our centennial year. But you know, I told the board of directors, we were just having a casual chat session, I don't mind traveling, but I feel like being able to stay put and be able to manage my own professional world, my family, and be able to do all of this tremendous extra work that has come before all of us, I'm okay with doing Zoom. And I don't know how you feel. I know we're social creatures, and we like to get out some when it's time, but your board of directors has really, based on what the board members who have more tenure than me, because remember, I'd only been a board member for 9 months when the pandemic hit, you know, they told me that the work has intensified, and I'm okay with that. The Zoom meetings, and let me tell you this, I want to say this before I forget. The deep dive groups that your board of directors has been assigned to, we've been split up into 4 groups, and the 4 groups are focusing on 1, membership, 1, a strategic plan for the organization, because the APTA develops a strategic plan, and the current strategic plan is set to expire in 2020. So that's a deep dive group. A 3rd deep dive group is a bylaws committee deep dive group. And I happen to be chairing a deep dive group called Better Together 2.0. So I had to ask, you know, can somebody give me the paperwork on Better Together 1.0? What do we do? Well, Better Together 1.0 is something we all came up with this. That was not an APTA necessarily board of directors driven strategy. It was really not intentional, but rather it came about because of the spirit of collaboration between all of us in the organization. So what my Better Together 2.0 group is focusing on, you may have heard this term federated model. It's not a new term, but the APTA is and always has been a federated model, which means you have a national organization under which you've got chapters, caucuses, sections, and things of that nature. I don't mean to leave anybody out, but the federated model is designed to be you know, inclusive. Our new unified branding strategy with APTA Mississippi or APTA, you know, all of that, we're getting better brand identity and better professional identity, which is going to help us out in the long run. So my Better Together 2.0 group is finding ways to enhance bonds and strengthen the federated model, and find ways to engage members, find ways to engage non-members. It's just a ton of stuff. This morning on our board of directors call for September, each deep dive group got to report 5 minutes. And it's kind of like tonight, once I get started, I can't stop. And our deep dive group has come so far so fast. For me to just be able to curtail my talk in under 5 minutes, you would appreciate that I did have them embed a video slide of pit bulls, I believe, If you have not Googled that YouTube video, look up Pitbull's I Believe, because we should have started tonight's meeting with that. If that doesn't get you pumped up, if you believe it, you can do it. That's what this PTA program is all about. And that I Believe video by Pitbull did set the tone for my report out this morning. And we're not set to finish with our deep dive groups and report outs to the board until the end of October. So perhaps, I don't know how much of this information will be released during the holidays, but certainly by the beginning of the year, with the release of the new APTA Board of Directors Ambassador Program, you'll start to see some of the fallout of the work of the deep dives group. Again, the more tenured board members, they say that they've never gotten the opportunity to work at this intensity, and this intensity is all I've ever known. And I got to tell you, I'm digging it. It's all for you. It's all for me. It's all for us. So I can't wait to share more about that with you. Maybe you'll invite me back. Maybe not. Maybe I've talked too much. So you tell me, David.
No, that was wonderful, Carmen, and thank you. It definitely sounds like, you know, I think the association, as well as all those on the call and several others, have taken this year and made it an opportunity, and taken something that could have definitely been very negative in many ways, and has been, and turned it into something positive, and taken that opportunity to drive forward. You know, a couple of high points: the fact that over 50,000 letters have been sent on behalf of payment cuts. I mean, it's not, guys, I remember a few years ago when we were excited because 10,000 letters went in. So, you know, it's showing that there is momentum, things are growing, and really it just takes people like you, Carmen, with that constant enthusiasm, that constant drive and push to make us think about how can we do something better, how can we engage in a better way. So it takes those small ideas about, hey, let's set a goal to just simply see how many engagements we can do in a year, and you know, let's surprise ourselves. Let's see where we are. And I will commend the group here on the panel and the, you know, the 190 plus participants in this panel of, you're taking your own time to do these things. And so that's a remarkable in itself. So I'm not paying much attention to the chat, but I think we've answered a lot of the questions as we've gone along. But I'm going to actually turn it over to Sean Bagby to see if there are any questions that they weren't able to answer in the chat box, or if he has any questions for you, Carmen, or any of the panelists at this point. Sean?
Yeah, hey, Carmen, there's a couple questions I want to throw out you that people have put in. And the first one is, and now I got to scroll back and forth. It's a great question from Nicole. What can we do in the future to stay ahead of things like these cuts? And I think I know the answer, but I can't wait to hear what you say to this.
Oh, well, and look, I'm not opposed to hearing your answer too, but thank you for the question. In this case, with the 15% cuts, nobody saw this coming. We were not prepared for this at all, because this wasn't even on anybody's radar. You know, we were negotiating and getting information to CMS in good faith, and then whoa, you know, we got the legs taken right out from under us. But you know, I like your question because I like your attitude. I love it when people are proactive. So what it takes is visionaries such as yourself to maybe try to predict things like that, not just in your professional life, but also in your personal life. We all try to mitigate risk. That's what makes a good leader. We all try to be proactive and prevent issues before they become issues. But in this case of the 15% cut, you know, I don't think anybody in their wildest dreams would have ever had a solution or a way to mitigate this risk, because this has never happened before. But you better believe that, you know, you've got people out there thinking outside of the box and thinking, well, if they did this, they might do this. So if nothing else, I think this has taught us a valuable lesson to, you know, really think outside the box and figure out what silly ways people could come at us next. It's 2020, right?
Right. All right. Next question I want to ask you comes from Audrey. There are a few of us who are new students to PTA programs in this evening's meeting. What are the top 3 things you guys would advise for us to do in order to become more involved?
Okay, I'll start with that one, and then I want some of the panelists to fill in because you already are involved. So you may not know that I have helped accredit 2 physical therapist assistant programs in Mississippi. So if you don't already believe that I believe in the physical therapist assistant, I don't know what else I can do to prove it. So what you can do as a student, number 1, if your program does not already ask you to be a member of the APTA, you need to do it. Number 2, if you've got colleagues, whether they be students or physical therapist assistants already who aren't members, you encourage them to be members. Number 3, you drag them to every local, state, and national event that you can, because I promise you this, you will get out of it what you put into it. And the 4th thing that I would say, and then anybody else is welcome to answer, if your program asks you to be a member, do not drop your membership once you graduate from PTA school, because the APTA offers what's known as the Early Career Dues Starter Kit. So what that means is they will allow you to prorate your dues, because when you're a student member, your dues are low. And then when you graduate and get your license, you're supposed to be a licensed member, but they will prorate your dues and start you out on the track because they realize that you're probably paying back student loans. So please, I mean, being on this call is one perfect example of showing initiative of being a leader. And the next time we have another town hall, ask a buddy or 2 to come. We've got 180 attendees plus 9 panelists now. Let's make it 289 next time. Good question. Anybody else want to answer?
Carmen, I'll take a crack at that. And then, like, for me, it's a couple of different things, guys. If you're here already, like Carmen said, you're taking it, and I don't have the energy of Carmen, so I won't replicate that. But the one thing is, like, everything's a step. We need people to be actively engaged. We need people to be active in knowing what's going on. And then we need people to be active and show up and voice out. The only way, and you see these 9 pictures up here, these are people that voice out and do it every day. That's what you have to do. You don't have to do it at this level, but you have to do it. You have to become active and engaged. And APTA will give you 100 times more than you will ever give it. I could spend an hour talking about what it's meant to me in my career and my journey in life as a PTA and as a leader and a person, but I won't right now. But APTA will give you so much more if you let it. It's your chance to get involved. So if you have any doubts, ask one of the reps in your area or ask one of the delegates. We'll be more than happy to help you with that.
Good answer.
All right, so Carmen, we've got a couple questions that kind of all lend together. And so want to throw this at you. It's going to be a long one. So is there a chance that the BBA could be modified or overturned if the makeup of Congress was to change or the White House in November?
Oh, yeah, no, well, let me start right there. Although that's an intriguing thought, you know, I'm not being funny when I say this. It would take an act.
We'll give Carmen a moment to pop back in.
So, Harris, you care if I take a shot at one of the next questions that's coming up?
No, go right ahead.
So a couple of the questions that are coming up to us are coming from students, and they are about the fear of what's going to occur in the field if the cut goes through or things like that. And I'll take this one from the point of view that, like, there's always a chance that something negative can happen with payment. That is part and parcel. That is something we've been dealing with for probably the life of physical therapy, as long as, like Harris said, or I've been involved for 20 years. there's always been issues where payment has come up, and chances and jobs might change. They might wax and wane from one area to the other, but it's going to occur. So what you have to do is make yourself adaptable. I can tell you, like, from my point of view, physical therapy can save lives, and that's what we do. And so if you've got a passion for it, you find the way to use your passion, and you find the way to not let insurance companies dictate what you do in life.
Yep.
I am not beholden to an insurance company. I'm going to treat my patients as the laws allow me and as the way. And if we can demonstrate our value to society, then we can continue to make an impact on society. Again, it goes to fighting for things, but if you're gonna like just be in this field and be passive, it's hard to do. You've got to be an active participant every day to move your profession forward and to move yourself forward in it. I hope that helps with the questions like that for students.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. And guys, you know, bottom line is make yourself valuable. There are jobs out there. There will always be jobs out there. When I graduated in 1999, there were this thing called the PPS, or the CAP, as you most of you know it, kind of hit in January of '99. There were no jobs. If you fast forward to 18 months, 24 months later, the PT profession was not only seeing the same amount of patients that they saw back prior to that, but they were actually seeing 20% more. So we will adapt, we will grow. Those that want to survive will survive. So increase your value, increase your engagement, and stay involved at all levels. Keep your ear to the ground, because that's how you actually make change, not by sitting back and expecting someone else to do it for you. So we're going to kind of fast forward a little bit and jump over to Jody, and we have a few other things. So thanks for the question and answer there, Sean. We're going to jump over to Jody, and Jody, floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. It is my very great pleasure to get to introduce your nominating committee to you. So I want to start with, we have Joanne Patton, formerly from Vermont, now in Arizona, Barney Kite from South Carolina, and this beautiful young lady on the screen with me, Rachel Winthrop, who is the lead of the nominating committee, and she is going to tell you a little bit about what they are doing. Rachel, take it away.
Jody, thank you for that wonderful introduction. So my name is Rachel Winthrop. I am part of the nominating committee with two other fabulous people, Joanne and Barney. And we are getting as involved as we possibly can be with every committee and thing that's going on with these people that you see on your screen. We've been joining into some calls with the region. We've been trying to just engage with more of you on a regular basis. So we're trying to be out there and just be as involved as we can be to see all of you doing the great things that you're doing. We're obviously looking for ways to engage PTAs in more ways. So, you know, we've been talking a lot about APTA Engage and getting people involved in that. If there's something that you want to do, something you're interested in, you know, even just getting involved in your local chapter, getting involved in the national level. So what's coming up is our elections for the caucus. So what I wanted to kind of highlight tonight is that we have two positions available this go round. One for alternate delegate. You saw Megan on the screen earlier, and she is our current alternate delegate. And then one nominating committee member, so someone to join the nominating committee. We pushed back the date for getting NC1 forms for people that wanted to run for these positions, just because of how rocky the year started off with COVID, people getting back into school and everything else. So we've now we set the date for October 1st, which is coming up. So I know I've received quite a few NC1 forms. I know Lisa Mack has as well. So I'm hoping that we're going to get a flood of a few more in the next couple days. If you are interested in running for one of these positions, if you just want to hear more about it, please reach out to me, Joanne, or Barney, or one of the people that you see up on your screen that are in the current position, because they can give you some really good information about what this all entails. But if there's someone you also think would be good for these positions and would like to nominate them, that's something you can do as well. So if you are a current rep, you have to be a current rep to run for alternate delegate. So if you go to the resources for reps, I think Lisa has sent out the link a couple times, but we can do it again just to make sure. And I know Joanne sent out an email earlier that also had a link to that. You can nominate yourself or someone you think would be good for that position. A nominating committee member does not have to be a current rep to run for nominating committee. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about it. If you're thinking that maybe this is something you want to do, but not right now, definitely reach out to us and we can talk to you about that as well. So if there are any questions, please let me know. But I know Lisa's put up the APTA Engage portal for you guys, and that's great because anything that you want to do in this association, don't set a limit. There are things to do and there are ways to get involved. There are volunteer opportunities galore. So please put yourself out there. It'll be the best thing you ever did, I promise.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you, Rachel, and thank you, nominating committee. You guys have done a lot. You've been on several of our calls, and you're getting to know your reps in a way that you've never been able to do. So another advantage of the platforms that we've been using this year. So thank you so much. Guys, bear with us just another moment or so. We have closing comments coming up, but I wanted to get out an opportunity for all of the PTAs on the line here through APTA, and that is the Centennial Scholar opportunity. I'm going to encourage all of you to go to APTA Engage. If you go to the website and if you just search APTA Engage, you'll be able to type in, once you get to that, you'll be able to search for APTA Centennial Scholar Program. And if you'll type that in, there is one slot to have a PTA represent the PTA caucus as a Centennial Scholar. A lot of information. I'm not doing it justice because I don't want to spend too much time, too much more of your time on this. But if you're a licensed PTA, if you're a PTA member, please take a look at this, see if it'll be of interest. The application deadline is October 19th. Your PTA caucus, your board liaison, your APTA executive for the PTA caucus fought for this to have a Centennial Scholar as a PTA, and that opportunity is before you. So please go to APTA Get Engaged and take a look at that. Other than that, I am going to turn the last and the closing comments over to our delegate from Florida, Miss Brenda Dorman. If you can take us out and conclude the meeting. Thank you.
I sure can. So I'm going to make this short and sweet. Thank you all for coming and participating in the town hall meeting. It's amazing to see that we have so many people here tonight that's looking for this great information. If you didn't already see it in the chat box, this has been recorded. So they're going to go ahead and post it on the APTA YouTube channel. So if you want to share it with people who weren't able to make it tonight, you'll find it available there. The other thing too, I want to make sure that we've all talked about great ways of being engaged and being active within your chapters, and you've heard some great suggestions from all of the leaders on the call tonight. But we also have our new updated Facebook page, the PTA Caucus, and that's a great way to find out information, to make sure that you're staying abreast of the advocacy efforts and that you're making sure you're updated on the current information. The PTA Caucus is looking to do some wonderful live webinars into the future that's going to provide some more relevant information for the PTAs. So be sure to check out that Facebook page and stay current with the information. But thank you again for coming in and joining our call, and we look forward to seeing you guys all soon.
Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful evening, and please reach out if you have questions for any of us. Have a great evening, guys. Thank you. All right.
Good night.
Thank you, Carmen. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
y'all. You're great. You're great. Bye.
Take care. Bye.